Oh boy.
And let me ask you, what is your NLC, Bjorn?
My NLC. Well, I think this is my 11th year, because my first season singing was David's first year as interim, and then he became permanent director afterwards. And I still remember the first tune that we ever sang in that first rehearsal, which was nothing elaborate. It was Jesus Still Lead On out of the LBW. And I can just remember it clear as day. I know that hymn is in G, and I'm almost certain that the bassist behind me in the second row probably tried to sing the double G at the end. And as a 23-year-old kid, coming from a decent but not world-class college choir, I'd never heard notes that low in my life, and it was pretty unbelievable, and many surprises along the way since then.
Had you just auditioned then and recently that was your first rehearsal after being accepted into the choir? Or
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your music experience in college like?
I went to Augustana College in Sioux Falls, and sang in the choir there, in the larger choir and in the chamber choir. I think I was in chamber choir for 3 years, and in the Augustana choir for 4. And we have a few of me and my cohorts in this group, and a few have passed through since then too, of course. But and we sang, great music, but it's amazing how much different it is singing with people who are much older.
Definitely.
It's a totally different tone and sound, and I don't think one realizes that until you leave college and find yourself in the middle of a group of, adults, beyond, say, 22.
So talk a little bit about the mix of ages in the NLC choir.
Well, I think we have people from 23 to 70 or thereabouts. And in my view, that's one of the real enjoyable things about singing in this group, which is that I think when you are in any sort of group where you're too close, either in terms of discipline, or I could say academic discipline, or economic status, or age, or sex, or any of these ways to kind of split up ourselves, it's far less rich and interesting than when the group is much more diverse. And I think that I found that to be really surprising, I think, when I first joined, which was how much fun it was actually to sing with people who were nothing really like me, other than the fact that we were sort of unified by this love of a cappella singing.
Right, I totally agree with that, and I saw that on tour somewhat too. Just, one of our older members riding on the bus and sitting next to a couple of our probably very youngest members for a couple hours, sort of sharing food and drinks along conversation in the bus on the way back, and you realize, wow, these people are separated by many years, but there's a really nice.
Still, I think we could do maybe not for this video project,
but
we could do a much better job of being intentionally building these connections, and I see it more in the in the new classes of singers in the last couple of years, which is that. And on both sides, I mean, maybe we're more kind of set in our little social groups, and they don't know anyone, and so they glom together naturally, and there's no fault in it, of course. But I think that we would all be better off if we can find a way, in a structured, intentional way to kind of not even let those little cliques form in the first place.
Right.
So
really you also spent some time on the management side for NLC, so you have a really unique perspective of the organization from that point of view. What do you think, I don't know, what do you want to share about that, either in terms of mission of the organization, or what some of our biggest challenges are, what biggest opportunities are? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, first I want to say that I'm glad that there's such a capable crew in the office now, and for me, I'm having a lot more fun singing than I was when I was trying to wear both hats, as a volunteer singer and as somebody who different responsibilities in the office. And it's really probably not possible to do both very well. What was your question? Oh, challenge opportunities.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is that you can always do more.
Yeah.
And I think the singers instinctively want to do more. But the reality is, with a group of 65 volunteers, it's just not possible unless we go down the route where we kind of split ourselves into smaller groups that can do these kind of unusual or unpredictable, unforeseen projects, and I think probably, rightly, Dave has resisted that, and we sort of all rise and fall as one big group. But that is the challenge. When I was 22, I would have gone on tour every single weekend, literally.
Yeah.
And maybe others have that inclination as well. But now, and having been in the office, I really see that there's probably a limited amount of human capital that the organization has to invest in certain ways every year. And we have to be really careful about that, and find the ways that are the most impactful, both sort of for us as musicians and for the communities that we serve.
I find it really interesting with singing as a musical art form, why it is so, I sort of see it as undercapitalized as compared to, say, orchestra playing or something like that. And I think in some ways it's because the voice is a very populist instrument. I mean, everybody has one. Not everybody can use it like you do, or like the members of our NLC use it. But it's an interesting challenge for sure.
But it's so ubiquitous. I mean, like you said, everyone sings, and yeah, there was some program on, I think, Carrie Miller's show 3 or 4 years ago, where they were talking about this very question. It's like, why is it that, I think I read somewhere from Course America that's the second most popular artistic activity in this country, behind knitting. So more people knit, I guess, than sing regularly. But everyone does it, and so maybe it's one of these things where it's just we have to find ways to make it a sort of special experience, because it's everywhere.
Right. And yet not everybody does it to the degree that an NLC singer, in my mind, is, whether they're making their living doing it or not, they are a professional musician. They are highly trained, highly capable, able to learn and execute music in a way that's really challenging. And just because you have a voice doesn't mean you can do that. So in my dream world, everybody who's part of NLC would be paid like a chair in the orchestra.
Me too. Yeah.
It should be that way, I think. Yeah.
I'd even take last chair, if there was a paid no.
What about the mission? I mean, do you think the mission is an important one? To preserve and strengthen and renew sacred choral music? I think, so that's our sort of stated mission. I think for me, and sort of with my singer hat on now, sort of, I'm back in that role for almost 5 years, so I'm firmly ensconced there. But for me, it's I think any art, and I'm plagiarizing from somebody, and I'm not sure who, but we sort of need art and need beautiful things like this to give us a reason to not despair, really. And with so much seemingly sort of going awry in the world and in our communities, it's often our rehearsals even are a sanctuary from that. And I've heard from friends and family and
concert goers, that our concerts are that for them as well. And so I think that's important for me. You know, I think I maybe care less than others about whether we're singing music that is meaningful to Lutherans or to other people of faith or to people without faith. That's less important to me than to make something that's beautiful or something that people can kind of detect beauty in, regardless of sort of what form that comes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I'm not Lutheran myself, but if for me music is a sacred experience, so and I know that Lutherans have produced some awesome music over the years. So yeah,
we try.
Yeah. Now, did you meet Brittany in the choir, or did you know her before?
Well, yeah, we. My last summer working on the staff, it was probably late May or early June, and I was sitting down in the hallway down outside the rehearsal room, administering auditions.
Oh yeah.
And Dave was inside the rehearsal room hearing people, and you know, bouncing down the stairs, here come Brittany and her friend, and now our friend Rachel, and she and I had run into one another previously at Lutheran Summer Music many years prior, but she joined the choir, and maybe 6 or 7 months later, I guess, we were romantically entangled, and now we've been married about 1.5 years. So
very cool. It
seems
to work that way. It's a great story.
If you're not careful.
It's a great story. Yeah, so be warned.
Yeah.
Be warned.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. You said some awesome things, and just turn this off now.